This tutorial is going to be all about importing and exporting animations to and from Blender and the Super Mario 64 Decomp. Most of this information is available on the Fast64 Bitbucket page. You can see the information down here, so importing, exporting animations that are not Mario and importing, exporting animations that are Mario. A lot of the information that I'll cover today is here already, but just for the sake of making it easy, I will be showing it in video form with some differences. So you will need to have watched my first tutorial about importing and exporting models. You will also need the latest version of Fast64, as some fixes were made because some of the animation stuff was a bit broken, but now it's all fixed and it was all very usable. Okay, so here we see Yoshi, which is different from my usual Goomba because Yoshi has a couple more animations, which makes some of the explanations in the tutorial a bit better because there's some code stuff that you need to do and it's harder to show with just a single animation. Okay, so I'm going to open up Fast64 and scroll down to the import animation section. These are the settings you need for the importing of the animation on characters that aren't Mario. So you need to have is animation list ticked, is segmented ticked, and is DMA not ticked. So what we need to do is set the level. Yoshi is found in the castle grounds, so set it to that. And start address you need to obtain from somewhere. Now in the Fast64 documentation it will tell you to use Quad64 and the script dump and all that to find it, but if you have the decomp it is actually a little bit easier to find. So if you go open up your decomp folder, go to actors, find your actor, go to the anims folder. These are the files that you'll find. So these first three, this one was that one I accidentally generated earlier. These first three are the original animations. The data folder or the data file is just a list of these files. The table is the one you'll need. To get this start address, most characters you can just grab this number here. There are some characters like Peach, Bowser, and Yoshi in this case that have a slightly different number because I think in game it adds like a header number to this number, but I'm unclear of like how to find that number and what to add to it. That said, yeah, most the Goomba will be that number. I think Mips is that number. Most of the generic enemies do use this number, so you can copy paste that directly there. But for the sake of Yoshi and some of the other ones, I've actually tracked down some of those numbers. So these are the numbers Quad64 will give you, and these are the numbers you can find in the decomp via that method. So as you can see, Toad's different, Yoshi's different, Mips is actually different, so that was incorrect. You can see that Goomba, Bob-omb, Fly Guy, Chuckya, Koopa Troopa, Penguin are all the same numbers. So I will put a link to this paste bin into the description so you can copy some of the numbers here. So for Yoshi, I will grab this number here, copy that back into Blender, paste that here. Now the next little bit of information is this animation list index. This will go like an unlimited amount, but depending on the character. Yoshi, we know, had 3 animations. So that means animation index is 0, 1, 2. You can actually see this back in the table file. So there's number 0, number 1, there's number 2. So I know through research this is the idle pose, the run pose, and then the jump pose. I'm just going to import the idle pose in. So we need an index 0, select the armature, click import. Now we have Yoshi in his idle animation. Next thing we want to do is go up here to the animation tab just to make things a bit easier. See, make sure pose all the armature is selected. Go down here and set this to action editor. So on the import, we'll have imported an action as just a default name of SM64AM. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call that Yoshi idle and then save that. So let's make user so that doesn't get removed. Once that's saved, you can import the next animation. Should be the walk. It'll create a new action. You can rename that one. Set fake user. Now you have the two actions. If I go to your idle, it'll go to the idle. Walk, it'll go to the walk. Alright, now I'm going to hop back to the idle and I'll work on the idle. Now, as you can see, there is a lot of bones and they're all named funny, but you don't really need to worry about the names and stuff. Just grab and move the ones that you need. But to neaten this up a little, I will go over here to the armature data. When FAST64 imports a skeleton, it splits it into two layers. On the first layer is just the regular bones, the ones that are linked to geometry and the ones that you can actually move around and animate. On the second layer is some utility ones like switches, shadow and scale bones that you don't need to worry about. So to neaten it up, I'm just going to go to the first layer. I'm going to make sure it is in pose mode. If I select all of them by hitting A, you'll see all the keyframes that it sets down here. Home to zoom in. You can see there's a bunch of keyframes, but you don't really need to worry about all of them. All the ones that don't have keyframes, you ignore, you don't animate them. They should be the ones like the hip. So as you can see here, this is the leg bone that is animated, and this is like the hip bone, which is not. Now regarding animations in the game, only rotation data is translated into the game, so you can't actually animate like the leg moving to like stretch it over here and stuff. Only the rotation will translate. Only bone that can translate information is the root bone. The root bone is usually named root, but I guess in this case it is the 000-offset, and as you can see, it has location information, whereas other bones only have rotational information. If you can just find the bone that has location keyframes, that's the only one you can animate with translation. So you can see it moves up and down, and then these bones down here are rotated appropriately so they look like they're moving correctly. I'm just going to grab the head. I'm going to delete these keyframes. Kind of put one in the middle, rotate it. There, that'll do. Hit I to set the keyframe set to rotation. For the case of the root bone, you would set it to location and rotation. Just do that. Now Yoshi will do this. I'm going to head back into the layout mode. See the animation does this now. So something easy to see if it translates properly. It's important to set the start and end correctly because that's the range that it will export into the game. So from 0, 50, or 49. If you're doing your own custom animations from scratch, you can set the range to whatever. So if like all these were over here, as long as you set the range correctly, it'll export that stuff. Let's undo that. Right, so that's pretty much set up for export. So what I'm going to do now is make sure the armature is selected, and then go down to the export animation section. Set the export to C. Loop animation if you want it to loop. Some animations like Yoshi's jump doesn't need to loop. In this case, we'll leave it set to loop. We can extract or export directly to the decomp, but I find that can have troubles and I can have more control over it if I go custom export path. I'm just going to set the directory to the same directory as the blends. Rename it to Yoshi. And I'm going to export animation. So export is successful. Now I'm going to bring up the folder where I exported the animations to. So there's the blends. I go into the Yoshi folder. Here's the files I just created. The important files are over here in anim. So now we've got our Yoshi anim, the data, and the table. Compare it to the original one, so you can see still got the data and table, but I don't have these three animations, which is fine because this one is named the same as this one. So Yoshi idle, it's going to export anim underscore and then the name of your action. And now we know that. Let's open up the original table. That's the information that the game engine needs. Probably don't change that unless you go into other files to change where it's pointing to. So these are the lists of animations. So as I said, it's these three animations here, and then they are there. So we know 3A4, that's the idle, E4C, that's the walk, and O08 is the jump animation. So that's the order in the table. So idle, walk, jump. So now we've got the idle, new idle. So what we can do now is just copy paste it over here into the decomp. We'll open up the generated table, and now you can compare them. So there's the table there, there's the table there. So since I exported this one first, it is the first item in the table, so item 0, same as the idle in the original. So now we've got it exported. Instead of transferring these two files over here, we're just going to edit the ones here. Since we've got the original, all we need to do is go to the new one, take that one, and paste it where it should be. So in this case, item 0. Now the table will use this new animation instead of the one over here, the old ones. So let's open up the old data. Basically what this does is it's telling the game to include these files. We open up the old and the new data, you can see it's including the new one that I generated. So let's copy that and just paste that at the end here. Save that. Save this one. Now it should be ready to go. So let's build that up. Perfect, no errors. So let's boot that up.
It's me, Mario. Hello. Okie dokie. Yahoo! 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 Whoa!
And there's Yoshi. And as you can see, there's our animation, all exported and done. And it looks like the jaw actually translated properly, so there must be just a weird glitch. Anyway, that's non-Mario characters imported. Let's move on to doing Mario's animations. Alright, so here is the Mario blend that comes bundled with Fast64. It's basically the Mario player model all set up with all the switches and materials and everything ready to go. So all you need to do is edit and animate this to get it into the game. You don't have to import this like all the other characters. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these parts, hide them, just to get them out of the way, and zoom in on Mario. Now, importing the animations into Blender is a bit more complicated than it is for non-Mario characters. It is actually similar to importing the character geometry or importing other actor geometry into Blender. So I'm going to run you through doing that. So let's head down to import animation. Now for this one, the settings is just this ticked, don't tick anything else, and you don't have to worry about the level. To get the animation pointers for Mario, you can go back to the Fast64 documentation and read this little bit here. It'll link you to this list of all the animations that Mario has in game. It does look kind of scary, but it's important to know about it. Okay, so you will need a hex calculator. I will link one in the description for those that wouldn't know where to find one. In my case, I'll be using my own little programming calculator. So to get Mario's animation, what you need to do is take this number, this 8-digit number, and then add it with the first 8 digits of one of these numbers. So in this case, I'm going to scroll down and find the standing, like the first part of the idle. Take the first 8, copy that, put that in my calculator, add it together, and I get this number. I will copy that back into Blender, put my start address there, which I already had apparently, and then click import. So now there's the first part of Mario's idle animation. What I'm going to do now is again head into animation tab, hide all the irrelevant bones, and then look at all the keyframes here. As you can see, this one actually does have a bone called the root. You can see it's got the location data. I'm going to do something similar to Yoshi on this one, so I'm just going to find the head, select these ones, somewhere in the middle, rotate, hit I, rotation. I've got Mario does this. That animation is now done, so let's head back to layout, view that animation. Now we want to do the same thing as the previous one, so export C, loop animation, custom export path, set the directory to wherever you want it, name it what it needs to be, in this case Mario, and click export animation. So that is now exported. So here's the files. With Mario's animations, you don't actually need to worry about the data in the table anymore. You just need to worry about this one, the animation that you exported. Getting it into the game is a bit trickier. So it's not in Actors Mario, so if you go Actors Mario, you'll see there's no animation folder. Mario's animation folder is actually under Assets, Anims. They're all named anim xnumber.inc.c. What we need to do is find which of these needs to be replaced, the one that you generated. So you can use this one if you want, but it's going to be tricky because you don't have line numbers to reference. So here's one I've prepared earlier that I will post a link to in the description. So basically what you need to do is find animation that you're after. So ours was standing normal. Note that it is 196. So what you need to do is, because the list should be starting at 0 according to the file names, take 1 away, so this becomes 195. Chuck that into your hex converter. Decimal 195. Convert that to hex. So now we get C3. Knowing that it is C3, what we need to do is go back into, we need to open the assets folder again. So assets anims, find C3 and open it up. We also need to open up the file that we generated. And what you need to do is copy the values of this big block here. Copy that. Replace it with the values here. Take the indices. Replace it with the indices. We can save that out. Build it. And run.
It's me, Mario. Hello. Okie dokie.
And now we can see the animation has transferred in. So just to check everything's still working, let's head back to Yoshi. See that it's a big broken neck jamboree. So that is the process of importing and exporting animations to and from Blender and the Decomp for Mario and non-Mario actors.